Hey there, everyone. Let's get together. I don't know why I have my headphones on. I don't even have my headphones on. Let's get together and talk NFL football. How about we do that? Why not? Hopefully, you all are having a good day. Just wanted to, of course, try and get this thing going on a weekly basis. So we'll do it today. Who knows? I would like to try and do these shortly after the Monday night game. I'd feel either wait till today on Tuesday of the week to try and do these, or just do them on Monday and recap the week outside of Monday. But who knows? But I don't want to I don't want to graze over Monday Night Football because there are important things that happen in those games, and this week was one of them. Really crazy week. I mean, it was all over the place. 10 games in the morning slot. I don't know if I like it. I feel like it's a little too much, especially when you have only 3 in the afternoon block. So I personally would be in favor of taking one of those early window games and moving them to the afternoon block. But of course, I digress. Anyways, this was crazy. This week had a lot of twists and turns. It felt like it took forever to get through. I don't know, man. I think the best place to start is how the week started. Buffalo and Miami. On Thursday Night Football. Buffalo controlled this game from the beginning. And Miami couldn't find their way to get back into this one. And then obviously the thing that everyone's now talking about at the end after the game isn't about the fact that the Miami Dolphins got their behinds absolutely whooped. It's the fact that Tua Tagovailoa has gone down with his 3rd concussion in 4 seasons. And there are a lot of calls for him to not play another down of football, retire, and just move on with your life. Because guess what? He has made a ton of money. He will be fine if he doesn't want to play or if he cannot play. And of course, this all brought up the whole contract talk with people saying, oh, well, this is going to happen with the way the contract looks out. If Tua is forced to retire due to medical reasons, the Dolphins will have to pay Tagovailoa all of his guaranteed money. All of it. If he is cleared to play and decides to retire afterwards, he loses the rest of the guaranteed money that he has. So, frankly, a decision on whether or not he physically cannot go back to play football rides on $124 million, rides on that decision, is pretty insane. And, yeah, I don't know. That was a really interesting game. It's been a long time. We've talked about it a lot. We're going to go ahead and move on to the Sunday morning slot. And, oh, my gosh. What happened in Dallas? What happened? The New Orleans Saints just went into Dallas and just mopped the floor with the Cowboys. Not even close. Oh my gosh. Saints have put up 40-plus points in their first 2 games. Of course, everyone wasn't really thinking too much of it because they beat the Panthers last week. But that changes now that they went into Dallas, a place where the Cowboys have won so many regular season games over the last couple of years, and just made them look silly. I mean, it was unbelievable. Kamara had 4 touchdowns. I mean, the resurgence of Alvin Kamara here is huge. They're exactly right. Kamara's back, and that's really important for the Saints team. And it looks like Derek Carr's kind of understanding what he needs to do. And he's coming through so far. And now it sets up a really interesting Week 3 game between the Saints and the Eagles. I think that game is going to be way better than you might think. Honestly, with the way New Orleans' schedule, I'm looking at it right now. New Orleans' schedule is looking pretty good. A lot of good games coming up. Rashid Shaheed might be a top 5 deep threat in the league. He might be if he keeps playing like this. I mean, he's got 2 ginormous deep threat touchdowns here. Saints have the Eagles at home next week, and then the week after that, they got to go to Atlanta and play the Falcons. That should be a good game. And then in week 5 on Monday Night Football, they're going on the road to play Kansas City, which when the schedule came out, I thought that was a terrible matchup to pick for that game. Then again, there really weren't too many other great games to pick. I would have loved to see Buffalo, Houston, or Green Bay, LA in that slot instead. But, that's looking to be a really good game now. Then you go at home to Tampa Bay, and their next 4 games are starting to look like it's going to be a classic after classic after classic. Saints are probably going to be must-watch TV for the next 4 weeks. Who would have thought after week 2 we'd be saying that? But yeah, the Saints just looked phenomenal. Their defense was great. Dak had a couple nice plays. CeeDee Lamb had a couple nice plays. But again, just not even close to enough to get the job done. And they just got exposed. And now Dallas has a game against Baltimore next week, which honestly, they should get absolutely crushed in. But because Baltimore is also now 0-2, we'll transition to Las Vegas, Baltimore. Because Baltimore's 0-2, that might be actually a favorable matchup for the Cowboys. Again, we're going to be watching another snooze fest on Thursday night. Yeah, Jets-Patriots isn't going to be the greatest. But I agree. Honestly, it could be a little bit better than what we think. To be fair, with the Patriots winning their first game and losing their second game in overtime, they've kept things close. They're not getting crushed as we thought, or at least as I thought they were going to in the first 2 weeks. They haven't looked like the Panthers, which honestly was kind of more what I was thinking I was going to expect from New England. But how about Baltimore being 0-2? That is just brutal. Like, of course, you think about, like, okay, if they start 0-1, it's because they play Kansas City. It's a tough game. But to go home on a long week, long rest, and then just fall apart with a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against Las Vegas is just embarrassing. I don't know, man. That's just a terrible, terrible loss. Just a choke in every way. Credits to Las Vegas, though, for sticking with it and pulling off a huge upset. Second consecutive year, Gardner Minshew goes into Baltimore and takes down the Ravens. The last time he did it, of course, last year, was with the Indianapolis Colts. But right before I jump into the next game, Lamar's got to, I don't know, man. We got to, if he cannot get the job done in Dallas next week and the Ravens fall to 0-3, we're going to have some serious conversations about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, because they just cannot afford to do something like that, especially when there are a lot of people having them as a Super Bowl contender. And not only that, but a Super Bowl winner this year. That is a must-win game in Dallas next week, and it sets up, honestly, a super important game for both of those teams, being 1-1 and 0-2. Anyways, as I mentioned, Gardner Minshew won in Baltimore last year with the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to go ahead and jump to their game against Green Bay, and Anthony Richardson just looked like trash. He just didn't look good. He did not look good. And I know that there are a lot of people who really love Anthony Richardson. And I'm going to be honest, his highlights are great so far in the NFL. Some of those great rushing plays and those beautiful passes, they're great and all. But which Anthony Richardson are you going to get in a given game? Are you going to give the Anthony Richardson that is going to throw 60-yard bombs against the defense? Or are you going to get the Anthony Richardson that we saw on Sunday against Green Bay, throwing 2 picks, overthrowing guys, and finds himself down 16-3 late in the fourth quarter? Of course, he threw a touchdown pass late in that game and honestly got a chance to win that game, weirdly enough. They had the ball down 6. I mean, the fact that the Packers gave Indy a chance up 13 with under 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter should not happen. But outside of that, their defense played well. They halted Anthony Richardson. They forced turnovers, though the Colts really should have at least another touchdown if Josh Jacobs does not fumble the ball. But frankly, this is just smart coaching. You got a backup quarterback in who has not thrown a touchdown pass. He did throw his first touchdown pass in this game in Malik Willis. How do you make sure that you limit the mistakes? Because, or kind of make the game as easy as you can for him. Well, you give it to your running back like 50 times. And there you go. They win the game. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, and I'll talk here a little bit. Of course, we're still a Chicago channel. I'll talk about the Bears here because the Colts are going to come home and they're going to face the Chicago Bears next week in what could be a really important game with both teams at 1-1. Or no, the Colts are at 0-2. So a really important game for Indianapolis, as there are a lot of people thinking and taking them as a sneaky team to win the AFC South. But if they fall to 0-3, that's going to be brutal. This game, Indianapolis should have won on paper. They really did. This week's really important for the Bears because after this, we have the Rams without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Yes, I will talk more about the Bears when we get to their game later. But yeah, they got a big game this week, and if they get up to 2-1, they very well could get up to 3-1 if they can get to, because the Rams will have will be without their two biggest weapons. Is DeForest Buckner out this week? I saw he got carted off. If so, that's a huge It's huge for the Bears O-line not having to block him. Honestly, even without him, with how they played this week, who knows if they're even going to play well, even without DeForest Buckner on the Colts, if he isn't going to play. Obviously, it seems like that's going to be a decision that'll come later throughout the week. I mean, obviously, if you really are interested, you can always just keep up with the Colts' social medias. They'll post injury reports because they're supposed to. So who knows? Bears need to win this game this week, and I need to see the defense generate some sacks and a pick. Honestly, I'm not asking any more of the defense right now. They've let up 17 and 19 points. They produced 5 takeaways in 2 games. They had 3 sacks of C.J. Stroud in this last game. They did their part. They did their part. It's the offense that needs to get going. It needs to be able to put some points on the board. Want to go to the baseball real quick. If the Cubs want to make the playoffs, to sweep the A's, sweep the Nats, win 2 or 3, and sweep the Reds, I think that gets them in. See, the thing is, they're going to have to win out with them being 5 games back. Like I saw this recently. The Cubs, they've been in top 5. Like they've been one of the best teams in baseball since the All-Star break. But guess what? It doesn't matter because guess what? 3 of the 4 teams that have been better than the Cubs since the All-Star break are, I don't know, the 3 teams in the wild card spots in the NL. The 3 teams that currently hold the wild card spots are the 3 of the 4 best teams in Major League Baseball since the break. It's unreal. So, I mean, the Cubs have a pretty poor chance in my eyes, but they do have a schedule to do so, to put them in a position to possibly get in, but they're going to need some help. They're going to, they got to sweep the A's. Losing 2 of 3 to the Rockies was the death sentence to me. That, I think, was the nail in the coffin. They really should have won at least 2. Probably should have swept them. But, whatever. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on here. Let's see. What's a good game to talk about next? Ooh, we're going to stay in the NFC North. Tampa and Detroit. That was a good game. It wasn't as sloppy as some of the other games this week that were lower scoring. It felt like, there were a couple of, bad turnovers, whatnot, but honestly, it was a 1-score game pretty much the entire way through. It was tight. There were interesting plays. A fake punt on a 4th and 12 deep in your own territory. Only Dan Campbell would ever do something like that. Only Dan Campbell would ever do something like that. I thought that, that was pretty good. And, the end of the game was, close. Detroit had a couple chances to get back in it. Baker Mayfield looked good again. He threw a pick, but, he had that really nice move that came like a play before. He scored a rushing touchdown. He looked pretty good. I really like what Baker Mayfield's been doing this year. And especially with what Deshaun Watson's doing in Cleveland. Oh, the Browns made a mistake. Oh my gosh. I still have no idea why Cleveland decided to get rid of Baker Mayfield despite him being the best quarterback they've had since they came back to Cleveland. He led them to the playoffs and their only playoff win since they came back into the league. He's led them to the most success. It seems like the team was gravitating towards him. They were winning more and more consistently than they had been since they moved to Cleveland. It made zero sense. He becomes a journeyman for a little bit. Saves his career with that throw with the Rams. Gets signed at Tampa Bay, has a great year. Dude, Tampa looks pretty good. I picked the Bucs in the game. The Lions struggle week 2 every year. That's true. The Lions have a pretty tough week 3 game. Tampa's got Denver at home, should be a cakewalk, and then they got Philly at home, which should be a good game. And then Thursday night, week 5 actually looks pretty good. Tampa and Atlanta. I like that game a lot. I think that's a great pick. Usually the NFC South divisional games don't get picked into primetime that much, and I don't really understand. Like, some of those games can be really good, especially if the teams are good. So I like that pick for Thursday night, week 5. That might be a really, really good one. But let's see. We're going to stick around. Let's stick around again in the NFC North. We'll wrap the morning slate for the NFC North up with San Francisco and Minnesota. For the first time, I predicted the game to end in a tie. It was the Seahawks and the Patriots, and it almost happened. We'll talk about that. We'll pivot. Seattle and New England. That was a good game. Pretty boring second half. Like, usually in football games, this first half moves by pretty quickly, so you typically see a lot less points than the second half, especially, if there's crunch time, teams trying to come back. And people are running the clock in the first half. 17-13 was the halftime score. We ended regulation 20-20. 10 points. It's tough. And no points in the third quarter, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I mean, again, I watch Chicago football. I'm used to that type of stuff. But, it's interesting. I thought that Geno Smith looked all right. He looked pretty good. Jacoby Brissett did a couple nice plays, especially leading up to their first touchdown. There were a couple nice plays Jacoby Brissett had. I mean, the Patriots are looking much better than I thought they were going to this year. I didn't think they were going to be good at all. I thought they were going to be contenders for the first overall pick this year. I guess they're going to be pretty good. I guess so. But, yeah. It got close to a tie. I mean, overtime was kind of boring. It didn't feel like it was like the tables could turn any moment. Patriots didn't score. Seahawks just moved the ball down the field to a point where they could kick a field goal. Game over. Let's get out of there. Seattle should have won that game. They did. They probably should have won in regulation. They probably should have won probably more than one score, just like the Bengals not only shouldn't have lost, but probably should have beaten New England by at least 2 scores. But, I digress. So, yeah, not too bad. It was a fine game. It's one of those games that can be close all the way around, and I would prefer watching a game like this where it's close mostly all the way around, and instead of a game that gets out of hand pretty quickly and stays that way. Sam Darnold might have the 2020 effect this year again. I mean, he's looking pretty good through 2 games. Sam Darnold has weapons. He has an offense around him. I mean, he's got all the skill position players to succeed. And that is why the Minnesota Vikings have won 2 games in a row to start the year. Now, of course, what are we surprised that they beat the Giants week 1? No. Are we surprised they beat the Niners week 2? Yes. Niners did not look good. They looked uncomposed. They had a couple big time misses. Of course, the 4th and goal tipped pass that could have been 6, where on the very next play, Sam Darnold decides to heave an absolute missile down the field for Justin Jefferson, who takes it 97 yards to the house. Sam Darnold also found Jalen Nailor, who's looking pretty good through the first 2 weeks this year. Seems like a good option, especially with the absence of Jordan Addison right now. Vikings receiving core is looking really good. Sam Darnold's having a bit of a career resurgence right now. Will it sustain? That's the big question for me, if they can sustain it. Minnesota has Houston this week at home. That's a tough game. They go to Green Bay the next week and then go to London to play the Jets. I could see 2-1 possibly. But, you know, there's also a world where Darnold has a couple of nice games here and then just can't get it together and they go on 0-3 in their next 3 games. The thing with the Vikings is I didn't think they were going to be that great because they were in a tough division and they had a bit of a tough schedule. But they've played pretty well through these first 2 weeks. I think I still am not totally convinced and sold on this team yet. It's been 2 games. Yes, it's a big win. But if they beat Houston next week, yeah, I might be buying into the Vikings because they look good. Anyways, let's move on to the opposite side of the spectrum. These 2-3 weeks are really important for the Bears. I'm not looking at the Commanders and Cardinals as easy games. Those teams are solid. Speaking of the Commanders, I was kind of thinking about going to their game next. 7 field goals, man. Sometimes this is a game where, you know, you're reminded. Sometimes it's important to go ahead and just take the points. 7 field goals was what they needed. Now, granted, this is the first game ever where a team scores 3 touchdowns and holds the other team to 0 touchdowns and loses in regulation. Now, granted, this is mainly because the Giants could not put any other points on the board because Graham Gano, their kicker, got hurt. So they had to put their punter in for an extra point. He missed, and then they went for 2 the next 2 times. So that just is kind of a bad circumstance. But Daniel Jones threw 2 touchdowns. Celebrate, New York. Malik Neighbors looked good in this game, though he did have that crucial drop on 4th down late in the game where they could have just kicked a field goal, and they probably should have. But Malik Neighbors still had a really good game. I really like what he's been doing so far this year. He's the lone bright spot on that offense. I'm telling you right now. Meanwhile, Washington, it's the frustrating thing is that they haven't scored a touchdown. They didn't score a touchdown in this game. They won, which, you know, again, if you watch Chicago football, you're like, okay, they won the game. Especially for a rookie quarterback and everything, like, you know, they won the game. It's important to, you know, bail out your team a little bit. You know, if you can get a little fluky win early in a career, that's important. But, you know, it's like he was able to drive them down, but could not finish a drive. So we'll see at what they do. They get Cincinnati next week on the road, and then they play the Cardinals on the road, which could be a pretty good game between 2 teams that may be sneaky good depending on how they play next week. They got pretty good competition and everything. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's go ahead and pivot. But yeah, real quick, the Giants, I think they're going to be pretty bad. They stuck with it. They stayed in the game a little bit. I still think they're going to be pretty bad. Who do they get this week? Cleveland. Nah, they're on the road. And then they got Dallas, which, I mean, Dallas has struggled, but, you know, Dallas is winning that game. Sorry. But, you know, they're not going to be good. Well, another team that's not going to be good, I think we all know this, is the Carolina Panthers. They just look really, really bad again. Wow. I thought that this was going to be, there was going to be a chance that Bryce Young was able to, take a step forward a little bit. And he gets Deontay Johnson. They drafted Xavier Legette. Couple more receivers to throw to. No. He looks just absolutely lost. He's running for his life. Can't get anything going. Held to just 3 points. Then again, it's a Jim Harbaugh defense. They're a good defense. But still, that is just brutal. And Bryce Young's now been benched. Bryce Young has now been benched for the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. I think it's not a bad decision. Andy Dalton will put you in a better position to win a game right now. They get the Raiders this week too, so that it'll be a good opportunity. But I'd like to give the Chargers their props here. Chargers controlled this game as they should have, and I really liked what they did. Chargers played well. I'm really liking what they've been doing. I knew that the hire of Jim Harbaugh was going to be pretty good because his identity is running the football. They've got two good running backs that they picked up from Baltimore in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins looks great. And their defense, they had the pieces there. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, the big three there. They still have those pieces. And he's making them play much better. They've surrendered 13 points all season. Granted, it was against Las Vegas and Carolina. But still, very good nonetheless. Chargers will get a bit of a test. Depends. That's going to be a nice defensive game in Pittsburgh this week. If you like defense, you're going to be watching Los Angeles and Pittsburgh. That game should be close the entire way through. But the thing is, I think that the Chargers offense is actually competent. J.K. Dobbins looks great. And Justin Herbert's throwing the football pretty well. I know everyone was like, well, the Chargers are going to be super bad this year because they don't have anyone to throw to. Their number one receiver is Quentin Johnston, Sir Drops-A-Lot, or, blah, 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 blah. Lost Keenan Allen, lost Mike Williams. Quentin Johnston caught 2 touchdown passes in this game. Justin Herbert was able to move the ball down the field. If they're able to have a good defense and hold teams to very few points, they don't need to have a high-flying offense to win football games. So I like what the Chargers are doing. I think it's an important game to see if they're going to be for real against Pittsburgh, if they can get to 3-0 as they head into a date with Kansas City in Week 4. Anyways, let's move on to, let's see, what have we not covered? We got a couple AFC games left in the morning block. New York and Tennessee. Aaron Rodgers looked all right. He looked good. Threw a couple touchdown passes. Threw a couple very nice passes. But the Titans are able to hang around. Will Levis had a couple nice passes down the field, which he did not have at all against Chicago Week 1. He could not move the ball down the field. I don't think he had 100 yards passing. But again, just like he did against the Bears, had a boneheaded, idiotic play trying to keep the play alive and get it out of his hands. Again, just take the sack, bro. That's more points off the board. Tried to fling it behind for his running back. He couldn't handle it. Just take the sack, man. You should have learned that from Week 1 after you threw a pick six in the dumbest way possible. But again, he had a chance. He had a chance to go down and win the football game. Couldn't do it. They lose 24-17 again, and you got to feel for that defense who's been playing pretty well so far. Who knows what they've got going. Titans get Green Bay. They welcome Malik Willis back to Tennessee. Oh, boy. That's going to be fun. Anyways, I don't know. There's not too much. It kind of was a little bit as we expected, though it was a bit close. So, there you go. This is a game I don't really have too much to talk about. Cleveland and Jacksonville. I don't know how Jacksonville lost this football game. They really played... Well, actually, I'll tell you why they lost this football game. Because they couldn't capitalize when they were in the red zone. Two red zone drives that turned into field goals. And if, Cleveland was hanging around, they let them hang around with the lead. Of course, they took that bad safety late in the game that really stalled their progress of trying to go and tie the game. But, they're 0-2. They're 0-2. The Jags have struggled. And now they got to go and play the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. It's not an easy game. They very well could be 0-3. Which, that was not happening in my mind. And then they go to play Houston in Week 4 on the road. They have got to win this football game against Buffalo. They got to get it together. They cannot fall to 0-4. And that just would confirm that they've fallen off a cliff, if this is the case. It says more about Jacksonville than it does about Cleveland. I'm very largely unimpressed with the win. A couple nice plays here and there, but largely unimpressed, and they get the Giants. They're probably going to be 2-1 next week. So, whatever. Let's move on to the afternoon slate here. Starting off with domination. Oh, baby. Who would have called this? Who would have called this? Arizona mopping the floor with the Rams. Now, of course, I know the Rams don't have Puka Nacua. That's one guy on the team. They can play better. They can figure it out. What the hell happened? Greg Joseph to the Giants. Oh, is that just did that just come in? Oh. You saying just send him there, or did he just did it get confirmed when he went there? Let me check X here. Come on, let's go. But yeah, no. Marvin Harrison Jr. looked absolutely phenomenal in his first start. Got confirmed? All right. There you go. They have a kicker in New York. Good job. Is it going to help him? Hell if I know, man. But yeah. I mean, what a game for Marvin Harrison Jr. He just looked phenomenal after a pretty rough first game with just one catch. 2 touchdown catches in the first quarter. I mean, he just had an absolute career second game performance. Like, this was his breakout game. He's the real deal. And this game proved to us that Kyler Murray, like, we all forget this, and I did too. Kyler Murray's still a really good quarterback. He can make things happen. The reason why I thought the Cardinals were still not going to be that good of a team is I didn't really like their defense. That was a big reason. I didn't really like their defense, and I didn't really like their receiving core outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I thought they were going to rely on James Conner a lot, and if they could lock down Marvin Harrison Jr., then they'll win. Then Cardinals are going to lose a lot of football games. But of course, Rams couldn't hold down Marvin Harrison Jr., so the Cardinals were able to win. And once it got up to 21-0 after that ridiculous scramble play from Kyler Murray, it was early in the second quarter, yes, but it was over. When the Rams went for it on 4th and goal, down, I think they were still down 21 points at the end of the first half. I thought it was the right decision. You're down 21 points. You need 6 on that play. You can't just settle for a field goal. You need to go down just 2 possessions into the locker room. Thought it was the right decision. Didn't convert. Game was over at that point, pretty much. So, Cardinals dominated, and they get the Lions this week. That will be a sneaky good game, and a sneaky game to go and watch. Of course, most of the country will be watching Dallas and Baltimore. But that's going to be a sneaky game to watch. The Sunday afternoon slot's much better this week. There's 5 games. And I think it looks much better. Like, there's only 7 games instead on the morning slot. I think that's fine. A lot of people on the Bears O-line who has upset you the most so far. I'll get to that in just a second here. I want to quickly touch on the other 2 games here before we get to the Bears game on Sunday night. Pittsburgh, Denver. This is a snooze fest. Now, I've watched a lot of defensive games. I watched one on Sunday night. That game on Sunday night was sloppy and undisciplined. This was just a bad game. 7-0 at halftime. Steelers go up 10-0, 13-0, and in that situation, if you go down 13-0 in the third quarter and know that the game is over, that's all that you need. Like, if you watch a game, see a team go up 13-0 and know that the game's over, that's all you need to say right there, man. I'm telling you. And I'm gonna try and hold off on this talk as much as I can right now. I can talk about it a little bit later in just a minute. We got one more game to go through real quick after this. All the Steelers are telling Justin Fields to be decent and rely on the defense. That's exactly what's happening. I'm happy for Justin Fields right now that he's winning football games that really he hasn't really helped and guided the team to wins. He scored 6 field goals the first game and has 1 touchdown in 2 games. But he's 2-0. The unfortunate thing is that is exactly what he could not do in Chicago. It felt like most of the time Justin Fields had to play a perfect game just to sniff a victory, especially during the 3-14 season and early last year. It felt like he had to play an absolutely perfect ball game to find a way to win. It was really, really, really annoying, to be completely frank. So it's nice that he's able to pick up a couple wins in games where he really hasn't helped the team a ton. Because I know that was a huge sticking point during Fields' time in Chicago, was the fact that he just straight up wasn't winning a lot of football games. He was losing a lot and couldn't guide the team to wins when they were down late. But of course, when you're never trailing, you don't have to worry about that. When your defense holds the opposing team to 10 and 6 points in 2 games, yeah, you're going to win football games. You don't have to score 20 points. So he's 2-0. I'm not fully sold on Justin Fields. I know there are a lot of people in Steelers Nation that are like gung-ho about, Justin Fields. They got to play the LA Chargers this week. I don't think they do really much more on offense. And then they got the Colts the next week. I don't know, man. Steelers offense looks really bad. But they're 2-0, so who cares? Also, the Denver just looks lost. They look just completely out of sorts. They don't know what the hell their identity is. Bo Nix is just wandering around. He just doesn't know what he's doing right now. And it's frustrating for him, I bet. Threw a couple bad picks. Had that one really bad one in the end zone, but, whatever. Denver plays Tampa on the road. I don't know. They're not winning that game. I'll tell you that right now. Anyways, last game before we get to the Bears, where I'll spend the bulk of the rest of the stream on. Cincy and Kansas City. Show of hands, who actually enjoyed the ending of that game? You can put your hands down. It's no one. I saw a meme the other day. I thought was actually phenomenal. Every Chiefs win right now, especially these last two, Fields wins the Piston Cup at the end of the first Cars movie. He's the only one celebrating. All right, we good? I think we're good. Hang on. We back? Are we good? Stream had a bit of an aneurysm there, but are we good? We back up? If so, let me know real quick. Because it seems like we're good. Back. Okay, good. Tua being placed on IR does not surprise me, by the way. He should not be playing this week. He should not be playing for the next couple weeks. He really should recover. I don't even know if he should play another down of football. And frankly, if the Dolphins play even semi-well with, who'd they sign? Tyler Huntley. If Tyler Huntley can perform, they should go 2-1 in their next 3 games before the bye week. Against the Seahawks, Titans, and Patriots. They really could win all 3 of those games. But, whatever. Anyways, yeah, Mahomes did nothing to win that game, especially at the end. Everyone's going to talk about how Mahomes, you just can't bet against Mahomes. He's great. Dude, he did nothing to win that game. He got bailed out by a clear pass interference. It was pass interference. I'm not going to deny that. But there is no way Patrick Mahomes did not lead that drive. He did not put him in a position to win that game. A boneheaded pass interference call did. And, of course, Harrison Butker doesn't miss. So, Joe Burrow outplayed him, had both quarterbacks threw 2 touchdowns, but Patrick Mahomes threw 2 picks. Burrow did fumble once, yes, but he threw for over 100 yards more. Burrow outplayed Mahomes, should have won that football game, especially after coming back from, losing to New England. I think that's a huge performance for the Bengals to, put themselves in a position to win that game. Stinks that they lost. They get Washington this week, and then they get the Panthers right after. 2 get-right games for the Bengals to get to 2-2. But then again, the Bengals, Joe Burrow has stunk the first 2 weeks of the year, every year. So, I'm not too worried about the Bengals right now. They've stunk the first 2 weeks of the year ever since Burrow got there. And the schedule eases up the next 2 weeks before they play Baltimore. And then after that, they play the Giants. So, there's a very probable scenario where they go 3-1 in their next 4 games. Anyways, the moment you guys have been waiting for. We're going to talk about the Bears. The Bears. Bears football. It's back on prime time, and it was a snooze fest for people who were not invested in this game and did not have a dog in this fight. But I will say, I'm going to go ahead and start reading off your comments here, Vinny. Let's see. Again, I touched on it. Bears need to generate some sacks and a pick. I don't think they need to do more than they did. If they keep that production up, they're going to be just fine. They've got 5 takeaways in 2 games. Picked up 3 sacks against C.J. Stroud this week. I think they did everything they could to put the Bears in a position to win this football game, but they just didn't. Like, seriously. They should have won this game. They should have. If they had, and frankly, if Caleb Williams was not in his second start in the NFL, they probably would have won this game. I like what I saw to Caleb first drive. He was nice and patient with the first drive, converting third downs. Hopefully he can throw for 200 yards this week. Yeah, he looked much better. Now, does that mean he looked good? Not necessarily. He just looked completely terrible week 1, but did not put the ball in really harm's way week 1. He did in this game against Houston through 2 picks. Especially that second play, that second interception where he, escaped a sack from Danielle Hunter. Really nice play, by the way. But the throw was bad. But the thing is, that ball's hitting Cole Kmet in the chest. You watch the replay. The problem is, he can't throw that ball is not going to be caught. It's going to be intercepted because he's throwing it into triple coverage, and he would have needed to throw it a little higher. Cole Kmet would have had to leap up and grab it up here. He's not going to be able to make that throw. Again, he's not playing Pac-12 defenses. He's going to understand. And I think that him making that throw, while frustrating, is important for him to understand that he's not going to be able to make that throw in the NFL. That throw is not going to work, especially in that scenario. So I think that that's important. I think Caleb Williams needs to realize that he's not the best player on the field anymore, and there are guys who are just as talented as him. So I think he just needs to be smarter yet again. It's his second game. I agree. He again at USC he was very used to good O-line play. I saw him play at USC. Again, you can see right there. I went to the University of Colorado. And I watched that CU-USC game last year where Caleb Williams torched the CU defense for over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. He had all the time in the world. He was not playing a good defensive line. CU had a terrible defensive line, and he had a good O-line. So he could, buy 9 seconds if he wanted to. He's not going to be able to do that. And this game really showed that. Offensive line was just absolutely terrible around the board. Out of all, again, going back to your comment, Vinny here, out of all people on the Bears O-line, who has upset you the most so far? Easily Nate Davis. He's a train wreck. Get him out of there. I saw a couple of posts saying that Tevin Jenkins has not looked good. It's unfortunate, but it's because they kind of moved him. I think it was moving to right guard. I think that's what it was. You got to move Tevin Jenkins. And frankly, I think if Nate Davis does not play well again, or just struggles a little bit to start the game, and Kieran Amagaji is fit to play, you got to play the rookie. You got to play Amagaji. I'm telling you right now. Because this is brutal. This is brutal. There are several plays where they're just confused. They're leaving Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter out on the edge unblocked. And it's like they're missing assignments. They're getting confused. The Bears' run game has also been atrocious. I agree. Now, is that a massive byproduct of the O-line being terrible? Yes, because as we've kind of noticed, if you have a good O-line, any running back's going to be good. Any running back that you throw out there will be able to make some plays if your O-line's good enough. Certain amount of running backs can look good despite bad offensive line play. Look at Saquon Barkley and how much better he looks through 2 weeks with Philadelphia's O-line as opposed to New York's O-line. So, I'm not too worried about the run game. in the sense that I think it's more on the offensive line. Though DeAndre Swift just cannot break tackles, and he's just being set up for failure. I need to see Swift just break off some run. I need to see a 10-yard rushing play this week. I need to see a good hole. I need to see something out of this running game. Because it is really frustrating when they try to get this going and it doesn't work. They get maybe 2 yards on a carry, if at the very best, most of the time on first down. If not, they're taking a big loss. You know, a dump out play, sweep play. They're just, the play calling's been terrible for the run game. And it's showing because the Bears, they're being backed up early on series, and therefore they can't get their way out of it, and they're going to have to punt. And then the defense gets tired and starts to give a little bit. On paper, we should beat the Colts this week. On paper, they should beat them. On paper, they should have beaten the Titans by more than 7. But, you know, I'm not panicking yet. There are a lot of people in Chicago that are completely out. They are panicking. I don't know what the hell's going on, man. Why are we panicking? It is game 2. Game 2. Hold up. Wait a minute. Why are we losing our minds already? It's 2 games, man. It's 2 games. It's not the end of the world, buddy. Please. I don't understand it. It makes 0 sense how we're already just wanting to toss this guy aside because Justin Fields is 2-0 when we realize that Justin Fields has only thrown for like 10 more yards than Caleb Williams has in 2 games. Justin Fields really has not looked that much better. He really hasn't been as effective. You know what's helping him? His defense is playing better. But also, they've been playing pretty bad teams. Let's be honest. The Steelers have played the Falcons. Now, to be fair, that was Kirk Cousins' first game. And the Steelers defense, good, they forced 2 takeaways. Guess what? They won the football game. But, that win against Denver, that's a nothing burger of a win if I'm the Steelers. That win means nothing. Offense didn't really show much. They scored a touchdown. Woohoo. Justin Fields and Caleb Williams have led their teams to the same amount of touchdown drives this season. That's it. And the Bears then have also scored more touchdowns than the Steelers. People who are already trying to do victory laps on the whole Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams thing, dude, it's 2 weeks. It is 2 weeks. And Caleb Williams looks more comfortable in the pocket than Justin Fields ever did in Chicago. And that's saying something with how poorly the offensive line played this week. There were a couple of throws where he's stepping up in a pretty garbage pocket, and while he's not throwing it deep, he's getting it out of his hands and to someone for a positive gain. There were several times on Sunday night where Caleb Williams was able to get the pass out, get the ball out, and complete a short pass where I'm like, dude, in this pocket, Justin Fields bails the second that the offensive line breaks down and just starts running. If he stays with Chicago. Because who knows what, the different coaching schemes in Pittsburgh. It doesn't surprise me because guess what? Mike Tomlin is a good coach. It's a good Texans team as well, and we hung in there with them until the final whistle. That is honestly very true. If I'm Houston, I'm very disappointed with that performance. That win on Sunday night for Houston leaves a lot to be desired, I'm going to be honest. If you're the Texans. Because on paper, if with how the Bears offense played and with how your offense played in week 1, you should have crushed this team. You should have beaten this team by at least 2 scores. You should have had this game was 1 score virtually the entire way through. 19-10 was the only time this game was ever outside of 1 score. If you're the Texans, that cannot happen. They will lose that game against so many other teams in the NFL if they let them hang around. I was watching it with some of my family, and that's exactly what we were saying. The biggest problem the Texans have right now, in the 3rd quarter, in the 4th quarter, they're letting the Bears hang around. The problem with the Bears, they had so many opportunities. It was pretty much virtually every time they got the ball, they were just one drive away from either tying the game, taking the lead, whatever. And they couldn't capitalize. And I think that is the most frustrating thing for the offense. The offense is the reason why the game lost the game. Defense did its job, holding the 19 points. Nico Collins does look freaking incredible. He looks phenomenal. I knew he was pretty good, but he looks great. And I think he benefits a lot from having Stephon Diggs on the team. So Jalen Johnson and whoever the top corner is on the team that the Texans are playing has to cover Stephon Diggs. So you get the team's second corner against Nico Collins most of the time, which in this case with Tyreek Stevenson, who has improved, but he is just in his second year. He did get burnt quite a bit. Texans are a good football team. They should have won that game. And frankly, the Bears could have won that game against inferior competition. But, with the way that game played out, there's a lot left to be desired. I know there are a lot of people who are really frustrated with this loss. I was on Sunday night. But, it's whatever. Keenan Allen is back this week, and that's huge. I think a huge thing for this week, not only to get, I think the top priority has to be get Caleb Williams comfortable in throwing and being a part of this offense. One, he needs to feel comfortable in the pocket, needs to be able to get the ball out, needs to be able to throw the ball down the field more than 10 yards down the field. Shane Waldron, draw up some plays, please. Stretch the field. Oh my gosh. I've been screaming this ever since Trubisky got here. The offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears just has the inability to stretch the field. They don't know what stretching the field is. So they got to do it. They got to do it this week. They got to find a way to at least give him a couple chances because guess what? Yes, his 2 picks were when he threw it down the field. Let him make those mistakes right now. Because guess what? The defense is good. They'll put him in a position to win football games. Especially in those games where they're projected to lose too. Let them make those, Why the hell are they... Yeah, why aren't they using the tight ends? And not only why aren't they using the tight ends, why aren't they using Cole Kmet? Why aren't they using Cole Kmet? Why aren't they using Roschon Johnson? I know Shane Waldron had Travis Homer in Seattle, but that doesn't mean he's better than Roschon Johnson. Johnson's the better running back. You need to use him. If Homer is good at blocking, yes, put him in on a snap where you need an extra blocker. Oh my gosh, make sure you know what personnel you have. Why are we running... DeAndre Carter's played pretty well through 2 games. I actually kind of like what he's been doing. But why is Tyler Scott not playing? There are plenty of things, I think, offensively, scheme-wise, that's on Shane Waldron right now that just doesn't make any sense. And that needs to change real quick. And I think that's got to be an emphasis. Gerald Everett is 29 years old. Those tight end screens are not going to work anymore. No. Why are we throwing passes to our backup tight end behind the line of scrimmage? Why are we throwing behind the line of scrimmage if they can't block? Simple as that. If you can't block, why are you even throwing it behind the line of scrimmage? It's ridiculous. Some of these screen plays, they're losing 5 yards on first or second down, and the drive is pretty much over because they haven't been able to stretch the field because Shane Waldron isn't calling plays to stretch the field. So Caleb Williams doesn't, and Caleb Williams doesn't really even have that much time to really scan the field enough. He needs a little bit more time to process right now, and his offensive line is not giving him that time. There's a lot left to be desired for Chicago here. There really is. And they gotta fix it real quick. I don't know, man. Pretty brutal. Bears get the Colts this week. There's plenty of things that they can change. There's plenty of improvement. Again, it's Caleb Williams' first 2 games. It's whatever. I'm glad I didn't see those stupid pitch plays as much anymore, but the play calling was still not good. True. I don't like toss plays. Again, some of these plays like bubble screens or toss plays or these jet sweeps where the runner has to get to the edge and it takes a while to get going. They can work if you can block. The Bears cannot block right now, so why are we throwing it behind the line of scrimmage? I understand. But, some of these offensive play callers, they just love these bubble screens. And, they're like, okay, this time it'll work. Like, it's the same reason why teams just run it right up the middle all the time. Because guess what? If you get one block and a great hole, boom, you got a big play. You got a big play on your hands. But it doesn't happen that often. So, I'm not saying that I think that the Bears should just chuck 60-yard bombs down the field every play. No. Simplify the playbook, which is honestly what I liked, that they kind of had some more quicker passes, simple outs, ins, slants, simple routes for Williams to complete some passes, get in a rhythm. I like that, especially with a rookie quarterback. Simplify the game. Don't try to do anything too crazy. Not bad. But I don't understand why that's all that they're running. Okay, run it every now and then, because guess what? Those are good for positive yards, especially if the running game's struggling to get going. But if it can't, I don't know, man. Like, how does the O-line get a false start coming out of the timeout? Dude, seriously. There were a lot of penalties on the Bears, too, though. But this game was very sloppy. The Texans kept the Bears in the game because the Bears' defense is really good, and they had a lot of really dumb, self-inflicted wounds with some dumb penalties. So, if the Bears can keep things going as we go forward into this week. Those two challenges were also pretty bad. I didn't mention it in my reaction video this week. That was one thing I glossed over. But those challenges were pretty bad. I think it was the Stephon Diggs catch or the Collins catch, whatever it was. The catch he challenged from the Texans was terrible. The challenge on the interception was less terrible, but still not good. But, whatever. I don't know who told Eberflus to challenge those or if those were on his own prerogative. If so, he should not do that again. But, whatever. The fact that Caleb Williams... The fact that Caleb Williams had an opportunity to have the ball, to go down the field and tie the game late is a true testament to that defense. Making stop after stop after stop. I think the Texans are going to be a really good team this year. They get the Vikings this week. I think that if their offense looks like they did against Indianapolis, they're going to be really good. If it looks like they more like they did on Sunday night against Chicago, it's going to be a tough game. Haven't looked at it, but is the Colts O-line good? I mean, they got Quentin Nelson. Anthony Richardson kind of was running all over the place. To be fair, the Packers D-line does have Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. They do have two S rushers. And, of course, the week prior, they had to play against Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, so I don't know. But you got, the Bears D-line did get 3 sacks. And with Anthony Richardson running around as much as he does, they very well could, pick up another 3 sacks this week. So I'm not sold on the Colts O-line, but who knows. But with that being said, I think I've said my piece. Real quick, want to talk about the Monday night game between the Falcons and the Eagles. Wow, the Eagles couldn't put away the Falcons. Couldn't put them away. Couple of really bad jinxes. Scott Van Pelt saying that the Eagles were just going to win this game. Coming out in the 2-minute warning commercial break. Cold takes exposed, bro. That's tough. I don't know why Why would you say something like that right now? By the way, as a sportscaster, why would you say that? You're talking about a team that's only up 3 points. Yes, they have the ball, but it's a 3-point game. Falcons have 2 timeouts. They're most likely going to get the ball back if they can stop them. Yeah, that made no sense. And Kirk Cousins let it drive down the field. Darnell Mooney had a nice catch and run for a touchdown in that game. Drake London puts the nail in the coffin. Jalen Hurts runs out of time, panics, throws an interception. Game over. Falcons win. big win for the Falcons, and now makes that Week 3 Sunday night game between the Chiefs and the Falcons much more alluring than it did as we were watching the Sunday night game this week between the Bears and Texans. Only thing I will blame the refs for is that punt. Yeah, that's true. How do you not eject a guy for throwing a punch on the sideline? How does that happen? How do you not throw the flag and lose your mind? How does that not even happen? I don't know, man. I did see the explanation be that the fact that they didn't throw a flag on the play during the scuffle means they can't throw a flag afterwards. I don't know. Whatever it was, there was something about it. I literally had the word in my head and I lost it. Whatever it was, there was some technicality about it that even after watching replay, they can't throw the flag after that fact. Whatever it was, it's some pretty bad rule, whatever it is, because it prevented them from throwing a flag and ejecting Azeez Al-Shaair, who, of course, played a huge role late in that game. I'll talk about the Hawks this year, another year where the Hawks opened the season on ESPN. Oh, I'm super pumped for that. But I need help to decide on a team. Colts or Saints? As in what? Like, decide on what team they aren't playing this week. As in, like, give me some more context. Because right now, I mean, if you're talking about which team's better, oh, you're new to football. Welcome to the show. Well, I'll give you this right now. Fingers crossed. Let's go. Hang on. Again, stream cutout. Please, again, if you guys are there, please tell me if we're good. If we're back, please let me know. Back in. Good. Thank you. Having some problems with internet right now. So we're good. All right. Again, if you didn't hear that, I'll restate. I'll go back and recap that again. I highly discourage new football fans to just look at the current season and just pick a team who's scoring the most points, the best team or whatever. Looking good through 2 weeks or whatever. So, not saying that you shouldn't pick New Orleans because they've looked really, really good these last 2 weeks. Or pick the Colts or not pick the Colts because they're 0-2 right now. But find the team that is better for you. Both teams have their positives right now. Colts historically have been a pretty good franchise. They're in a bit of a cold spot right now. Haven't won the division in 10 years. Reason I said Saints is because I liked their logo back when I was a kid in 2009, but that's the only connection. Colts, I like their history a bit. Fair. So yeah, if you like their logo, and frankly, if you like the Colts history, go with Indianapolis. It's a good team to follow. They've got a good history. They got they got 2 Super Bowls. You got Peyton Manning and everything. Like I think the history of the Indianapolis Colts, I think helps. I think if I were to recommend you to where you'd have a good experience on a yearly basis, I'd probably go. I like to consider which city am I most likely to visit, Yeah, I understand that. Which city are you most likely to visit? I mean, if I had to pick between visiting Indianapolis and New Orleans, I'm picking New Orleans. That the culture in that city is much more interesting and frankly is much more of a touristy destination than Indianapolis is. Indianapolis does sound boring. I've been there once or twice, but I've driven through it. It's nothing to write home about. But I know some people from Indiana and everything, so how about you better? I don't know. There's my advice. I won't give you a definitive answer. From what you've told me, you like the Colts history. Stick with Indianapolis. But of course, It is your idea. And there's nothing wrong with, being a fan of the NFL as a whole, especially new, not from America, and just being a supporter of two teams. And it's good because both the teams that you mentioned are in two different conferences. So, I can understand that. It's not too bad. But, welcome to the NFL fandom. It's a wild place. We need an O-line badly. I hope we beat the Colts on Sunday. Cool, broski. Respect your opinion. We'll subscribe. Want to make NFL content, and I want to learn the game just to pick a team, root for. Yeah, that's true. You pick a team. I've been living in Southern California for over a decade now, with my time, of course, at college in Colorado, rooting for the Buffaloes. But I've lived in California for the past decade. But, I grew up and, the first 10 years, I spent the first 10 years of my life in Chicago. So I picked up, the Chicago sports fandom, which, we're in a really bad spot right now. Bears kind of, I'm not talking about the Bears yet as the past season and everything, but the Hawks stunk. Cubs are, below expectations. Bulls underperformed again, we're in a rough patch. But there's my connection. Yeah. Very nice. Welcome to the fandom and everything. Welcome to the channel as well. Need no line badly. Hope we beat the Colts on Sunday. I agree. I hope we beat Indianapolis. It's very important. Very important game. Indianapolis' offense did not look good against Green Bay at all. Anthony Richardson threw 2 bad picks. I think it's just, which Anthony Richardson are we getting on Sunday? Are we getting the Anthony Richardson that can throw up a prayer and get it going and light up an offense? Or are we going to get an Anthony Richardson that just looks pedestrian, can't get anything going, and throws 2 bad picks? Who knows? I don't know. If you're thinking from the Bears' perspective, you're hoping the latter. And that defense definitely can force Anthony Richardson to make some bad throws. But, Kyler was still very good on Sunday. Had a few great tackles for loss, but he's got to pick that for a pick 6. He won't miss that next time, but he's got to catch that and return that. I can understand that. It was a bit of a tip drill. And I usually don't rag on defensive backs, juggling a pass and maybe not hanging on to it, Sometimes, I can excuse it every now and then, mainly because, they're not there to catch the ball. That's not their main. They don't practice that. That's not their bulk of their practice. They're covering guys, making sure they can't catch the ball, making it harder for the quarterback. But I agree. It would have been really nice for him to catch that and take that into the end zone. But, it's a minute detail. Outside of that, Kyler Gordon looked really good. I think he's really good on a corner blitz right now. He is just a one-man wrecking crew when going in to try and disrupt the quarterback, man. Big reason why Levis threw that terrible pass as he brought the heat on that play. He gets some huge tackle for losses here. I really like what he's been doing in the backfield, weirdly enough, for a cornerback. So, I don't know. Jalen was, again, great on Sunday. Every team is just afraid to target him. That's the thing. When you get into a position where you're a good cornerback, all it takes is one good season, and then all of a sudden everyone's scared to throw to you. And then you don't get that many targets, and then you just coast on reputation. That's kind of the thing. Like, you think about some of the notoriously best cornerbacks in the league, and they don't rack up the massive numbers as they usually do, as they did on their breakout season, because guess what? People aren't throwing to them as much. So, Jalen played good. And I think it's great. I think it shows, that when he's covering the number one receiver in Stephon Diggs, he did not have very many targets in that game, and I think that shows that Jalen Johnson is doing his job. And frankly, Michael Pittman would be his target this year, or this upcoming week against Indianapolis. And Michael Pittman hasn't looked really good. I've had him on my fantasy team. He's looked terrible in terms of the stats and everything. Just hasn't been targeted that much. Alec Pierce will be the guy I'm kind of worried about. And maybe that's who Jalen Johnson kind of picks up every now and then, because Pierce has looked pretty good. I liked what Alec Pierce is doing. I mean, they've got a couple other guys that can be sneakily good. Ashton Doolin and A.D. Mitchell can get in there every now and then, but and again, it all really depends on if Anthony Richardson is putting the ball on the money. Because if he can, they're going to be a deadly offense. It's going to be tough for the Bears to stop them. But if he can't, and the Bears can throw some pretty errant passes, some offline throws, they can produce some takeaways. So there's a lot. There's a lot that's up in the air with the Bears this week, I think, and everything. I think it's just they got to make sure it works. They got to make sure that they get it together. And I don't know. It's an important game. The Colts are 0-2. They are going to be playing with a fire this week because they're 0-2 and desperately need a win. Cannot go to 0-3. Especially, and it's not like that. They got Pittsburgh week 4, so it's another tough defense. Who knows? Noah Cox is sneaky good for the Colts here and there, so we have to keep eyes on him. Yeah, like when you think about game plan in the receiving game, we talk about these receivers and all the time, and you talk about tight ends like George Kittle and Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce and all these other top end tight ends that you plan for. But with these teams like Indianapolis that have Mo Alley-Cox, he's sneaky good. They should game plan for him just as much as they game plan for their receivers like Michael Pittman or Alec Pierce. I think it's important. But yeah. Bears Colts, I think that it's important for Caleb Williams to get things going in the passing game. And frankly, I think he's got a pretty good opportunity to do so. This secondary isn't nearly as good, I'd say, as the last two. I mean, you've had to go against L'Jarius Sneed as your top corner last week to, throwing 2 picks to Derek Stingley and then Lassiter, a rookie. But you look at the Colts secondary here. Hang on. You got Kenny Moore, who I think is pretty good. Then there's Juju Brents and like Julian Blackmon. Like they got a couple of pieces, but they don't. I don't get a sense of a lot of fear from that Colts secondary. I think that they have DeForest Buckner if he's going to be healthy. Zaire Franklin's an underrated running back in this league, so he could be good. Laiti Latu is a good pickup so far. Recovered that fumble in the end zone against Green Bay. So he could be good. Could be some trouble for the O-line if they can get some protection. It's not going to be nearly as bad. I sure freaking hope so that it was against Houston, because Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are just phenomenal. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen should have over 100 yards. Should. I don't know if it happens. It depends. Like, Caleb Williams threw for just 174 yards this past week. If he puts another 100 yards on the board, about another 100 yards, throws for about 250, then yeah, I could say probably yes, DJ Moore or Keenan Allen should have 100 yards. But, if the offense can't get going and he throws for maybe 200 yards again, then I don't think they get there. But they got to get the passing game going. They got to get the running game going for sure, because the passing game looked a little bit better on Sunday. But if they can't get the running game going, it's going to be tough. There's a lot running on this game. You're 1-1. Now, granted, you have a bit of a break with the Rams being injured week 4. And then you got the Panthers week 5. And if the Jags keep slumping, maybe that's a easier game as you go to the bye. Oh, I forgot about Latu. Damn, this O-line better have a bounce back this week. If I see Nate Davis have another bad week, you have to sit him. Honestly, I don't know what the status of Kieran Amagaji is, but I think that if Nate Davis struggles a little bit to start, or, Tevin Jenkins struggles a little bit, I think Kieran Amagaji's got to find his way into the O-line this week. There's plenty of stuff to work with here. I think the Bears, they got a tall task here. I think I picked Saints, bro. Well, welcome to the Saints fandom. They'll be glad to have you, I bet. It's a good franchise. They're a fun team to follow right now. They can be frustrating. You know, I did. One of my best friends from college is from New Orleans. New Orleans lives and breathes, lives and dies by the New Orleans Saints. When they're good, that city rallies around that franchise, and they will care through thick and thin. So I think you picked a good franchise, man. And frankly, right now, they're in a pretty good streak. They're top of the world right now. They're 2-0. 47 points against Carolina, 44 points against Dallas. And frankly, with the Saints, you're going to understand what it means to be a Saints fan here soon. You got a big game against Philly this week. But week 4, you're gonna get a game against the Atlanta Falcons, the Saints' biggest rival. So you're gonna understand what that game means. Get yourself invested for that. Understand what that game means. Those teams were both established in the late 60s, and they've been playing against each other ever since. So, yeah, you got it, bro. If we can block Rome Odunze, would be good on that end around play. We saw a little of it in the preseason can work. Yeah, I think Rome Odunze can get going. If he can get going, that's huge. I'm not necessarily prioritizing that because, again, I want to prioritize getting the passing game in a flow state. And, of course, if Keenan Allen's back, Rome Odunze is back to receiver 3, and he can be kind of more of a addition to everything. But, you know, I want to see him getting going, too, because I love Rome Odunze. So, there you go. Anyways, I have to go. I'm not going to hold you guys too much longer. If you have any final questions, please drop that in the chat. I will be back next week. Of course, I've been thinking about it, doing some live streams for the Thursday night or Monday night games. You know, trying to be able to hang around with you guys, build up a community here. I'll make a community post about this later today, probably. If you guys want to see that, please let me know. And of course, if the Bears are involved, I want to right now take a little bit priority, you know, and hang around with my family when the Bears are involved. So unfortunately, I don't think I will be, you know, streaming those games. But you know, if the Bears aren't involved and you know we're not having people over or anything, you know, and I got time, I want to try and maybe stream some of these games, you know, talk some football while watching a football game and everything. You know, it's great. Do you think the Hawks will be a bottom 5 team? Switching to hockey real quick. Blackhawks. Do you think they're going to be a bottom 5 team this year? No. I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 team this year. I see some people saying they're going to be a sneaky wild card team. I don't think that happens. The Hawks are not. They're still not going to be a good team this year. Oh, man, I'm getting a little hot here. But I don't think they're going to be a bad, like, truly that bad. Who's the guy that the Hawks brought back this offseason? Who did they bring back? I don't know about. Because I know they brought back. They brought. Oh, the guy who brought back. Oh, duh. How could I forget? How could I be so naive? Just confirmed they'd placed DeForest Buckner on IR. That's a huge win for the Bears this week. Right there. There you go. Huge victory for the Bears this week. That'll be really interesting to see how the Colts D-line adjusts without their best player up front. But the big guy they brought back this offseason, I totally forgot. It's Tavo time, baby. They brought back Teuvo Teravainen, star depth piece from the 2015 Cup run, and he blossomed into a great cornerstone for those great Hurricane teams. Unfortunately, they couldn't get over the hump, but it's a huge. This is a guy that I'm actually very happy that the Hawks brought back. I think he's a great free agent signing. But not only do they bring back Teuvo Teravainen, Connor Bedard's there. They got Taylor Hall. Hopefully he can be healthy. They brought in Tyler Bertuzzi, who's just doing the rounds against to be on every single original 6 franchise. They brought in Alec Martinez, and there was another older TJ Brody, I think. That was who it was. I think that's who it was. On the defensive side, they brought him some experience there. You got Seth Jones, which I know some people say it's a pretty bad contract, but, you know, I like him. And then Frank Nazar. I'm hoping this guy blossoms into a star. Got to see a little bit of it last year, at the end of last year. You know, Kevin Korchinski's looking to look pretty good. But, you know, I don't know. I think they're in a position right now to not force Artem Levshunov out just yet, right at the start. So, that's all right. But, you know, who knows? Maybe that's another thing I do throughout, you know, things, stream Hawks games. Stream me watching Hawks games if I ever feel so inclined. Yeah. The Hawks take that made me the most depressed last year is when, scored the game. That was one of the few games I watched at last year. That was one of the few games I ended up watching. That stunk. That really stunk. Of course, not only did DeBrincat score the game-tying goal, but Kane scored the overtime winner. Anyways, enough about hockey real quick. Can you explain to me how fixtures work, bro? How do teams play each other? Like, how many times a season? All right. I will tell you, I'm an absolute expert on the NFL schedule and how it's structured. So, here, I can do this for you right now. Hang on. This is an emergency get together here. All right. We're going to go ahead and break it down for you here. Window capture. All right. All right, let me just go ahead and shrink this up. This is my nerd sheet. This is me being an absolute nerd. This is it. I predict every single game how I think it's gonna go at the start of the season, every single game, and of course the playoffs. You can see my takes. But this is what I did in my division previews. I took what I did here, and this is the schedule stuff that I put in my division previews video. And then I have one for, you know, real time, just picking stuff. But that's the main purpose of this. But I tried to predict what the Bears schedule is going to look like this year. So I'm actually going to kind of just enlarge it. So, you don't have to... I'm actually going to move my camera up a little bit so you can see my face while I talk to you about this. All right. It was a bit of a mess. Apologies. Let's just do this. Let's try and make it a little smaller. Actually, no, I'm just going to do this. All right, that's good. All right. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Okay, good. So, there's the Bears schedule down on the top there. The bottom is what I predicted it to be. On the left of this vertical column here is... are the 9 home games that the Bears have this year. The right are the 8 away games they have. So disregard the bottom one against that says any, the New England Patriots. Disregard that for a second. Oh, come on, man. How are we doing? Great experience I had with the Hawks last year. Let's see. All right. Hopefully, things are good right now. Nice. I'm glad you went to go see a Hawks game. All right. Reconnecting. All right. We good? Well, again, let me know if we're back. Still here? Okay, good. All right. Yeah, again, Wi-Fi is just kind of having its moments every now and then here. So, again, the 9 games on the left side are the home games for the Bears this season. You can see GB, DET, MIN twice on there because those are the 3 divisional opponents that the Bears play this year and every year. The Green Bay Packers, the oldest rivalry in the NFL, big thing for lore if you're interested. Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, oldest rivalry in the NFL. They've been playing for over 100 years. Detroit Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings. That is the NFC North. You play your 3 division opponents twice a year. Once at home, once on the road. So for the New Orleans Saints, it would be... Actually, I'm just gonna move this down here. Let's just do this. So for the New Orleans Saints, they'd play the Atlanta Falcons twice a year, the Carolina Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3 times a year. There are... see, I want to see if I can... I'm going to try and circle this and just shrink this a little bit. All right. I just need to get some room here. All right. Let's go with this. It's a bit of a mess, I know. Okay. Alright. Hopefully I'm making some sort of sense here. Because I want to highlight these next 2. So you got these 6 games that you play every year. Following so far. Okay, so with the Saints, I might pick up the Saints here. I'll spell it out with the Saints here in a minute. But you got these 6 games. Those are your divisional games. You play those every single year. These 4 teams are the teams in the NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Arizona Cardinals. You play one division in your conference every 3 years. Because there's 3 other divisions in your conference. You just, 3-year cycle. So this year they played the NFC West. Last year, the Bears and the NFC North played the NFC South, the Saints division. So the Bears play the Saints, are guaranteed to play the Saints every 3 years. They are guaranteed these games every 3 years. These games right here against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans, and the Indianapolis Colts are played every 4 years. Since there are 4 divisions in the AFC, you cycle through those as well. So these are played every 4 years. Now, how do you determine whether you're playing home or away? Pretty simple, actually. I'm just going to keep this down here. So it's always NFC versus NFC. Not always. But you will play a division in the NFC every year. You'll play a division in the AFC every season. This case, the Bears play the AFC South all the way through the entire division. Now, you decide whether or not you're home or away in these games just on a cycle. So this cycle, the Bears are playing on the road against the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts, which were the 2 most recent games. Bears played in Houston this weekend on Sunday. They will not play in Houston again for another 8 years. The next time the Bears will go to Houston to play the Texans will be in 2032. The Bears will not go on the road to play the Colts after this week until 2032. Or at least that's when they're scheduled. But I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so you play a different division in the NFC, AFC every year, including your own division. Yes, you play your own division home and away every single year. You play a division in your conference on a 3-year cycle and a division in the other conference on a 4-year cycle. Funnily enough, actually, ignore all that. Here's what the Bears' scheduled outlook is looking like. I found someone who posted this. But here, I'll get to that in just a second. The last 3 games. So, all right. Let me slow down here for a second. If that makes sense. All right. So these 14 games every single year, 4-year cycle, same NFC conference same NFC division every 3 years, same AFC division every 4 years. And obviously that's flipped if your team is in the AFC. You play you play said AFC division. You're playing this year every 3 years. So, for example, if we are the Tennessee Titans, we'll play the Jaguars, Texans, and Colts twice every year. You'll play, say, the AFC North every 3 years, and then the NFC North every 4 years, instead of an NFC division every 3 and an AFC every 4. Now, these 14 games are guaranteed. You know that these are going to happen from the start. They are scheduled prior to any season being played. These are just on rotation all the time. They're just on rotation. Same thing here. Every 3 years, you flip home and away. So in 3 years, when the Bears play the Seahawks, since they're at home this time, they'll play on the road against Seattle. Because they're at home on the road against San Francisco this time, in 3 years' time when they play the NFC West again, they'll be at home. Same thing here with the AFC. Because they're playing at home against the Titans, this time in 4 years, they'll play the Titans on the road. So, again, these are guaranteed games. So those are the easiest ones to follow, I'd say. You know, you take... You're guaranteed 14 games a year. You get it. So let's take it with New Orleans here. I'll put them right here. So you got New Orleans here. You get to play Atlanta home and away every year. So let's say Saints play NFC West this year. Next year it would be the NFC North. That's what it could be, yes. So, yeah, Atlanta, Carolina twice, Tampa Bay twice. All right. So they're your division games. This year, because the Bears and the NFC North are playing the NFC West, well, there's only 2 other divisions in the NFC. Process of elimination. The Saints are playing the NFC East this year. They just played the Dallas Cowboys. That was a road game. They're playing the Philadelphia Eagles this week. That is a home game. They are playing Washington at home this year, and they're playing the New York Giants on the road this year. So there's your cycle. So in 3 years, when the Saints will play this division again, this will be flip-flopped, where they'll play Dallas and New York at home, and Philadelphia and Washington on the road. For their AFC division this year, the Saints will play the AFC West. This year they get the Denver Broncos at home and the Las Vegas Raiders at home. They get the LA Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. Now that'll repeat every 4 years. 4 years from now, the Saints will play the Broncos and the Raiders on the road, and the Chiefs and the Chargers at home. That makes sense. Now, this is where things will change. So you're guaranteed 7 home games and 7 road games a year that you know. So we know in 4 years where the Saints will be playing. But opposite same, yeah. And same thing with the NFC, repeat 3 years. Switch stadiums. So those are your guaranteed games every year. Now, what about these 3 games at the bottom, where it says Carolina, Washington, and New England for the Bears? These are determined. These are the only games that you wait to the end of the current season to figure out who you play. This is all based on standing. So where you stand in your division. So, for example, this past season, the New Orleans Saints finished second in the NFC South. They finished second. So, with the 2 divisions that they are not playing the entire division. So, all right. So, you got you have 4 divisions in the conference. NFC South, NFC North, NFC East, NFC West. And then vice versa with the AFC. North, South, East, West. The Saints already play the entirety of the NFC East. So to add 2 more games, they'll play 1 team from the NFC North and 1 team from the NFC West. They will play the second-placed team in that division, like whoever also placed second in their respective division last year. So in this case, it is the Los Angeles Rams who finished second in the NFC West. And that is a home game for the New Orleans Saints. And in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers finished second in the NFC North. They will play that on the road. Those games are played you pick a new team every year, so it kind of varies. So it promotes also if you play well and two teams are playing at a similar level, they'll play on a yearly basis. So for the Chicago Bears, they've played the Washington Commanders pretty much virtually year in, year out for the last 7-8 years because both teams have been placing similarly in their respective divisions. Now, that was the 16-game format that had been, so commonplace for years. To be fair, these two games, they get picked at the end of the year. You figure out which games you're playing at the end of every year. Every time. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But this last game here, where the Bears are scheduled to play the New England Patriots, this is what they added for an extra 17th game. Gotcha. Okay, good. Does. At the extra 17th game, this is now the, let's see, this is now the 4th season they've had this going. So, as I mentioned, you play an AFC division every year. This last game is also picked on standing. You play a division every 4 years, right? So the Saints play the AFC West this year. Last year, the New Orleans Saints played... Sorry, hang on. I gotta remember who they played. They played the AFC South. So they were playing teams like the Texans and the Jaguars and the Titans and the Colts, like what the Bears are playing this year. That's who they played last year. Next year, the New Orleans Saints will be playing the... Hang on, again, I gotta figure it out. Figured out who they're playing again next year. Let's see. Next... Next year, the Saints will play the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins. There's only one division in there where it hasn't been named. The AFC North. So they pick this 17th game based on one team from the AFC division that you don't play this year, that you didn't play last year, and that you don't play next year. So it would be you play them 2 years after you are scheduled to play them, if that makes any sense at all. This year, the NFC South, whoa. It's a bit weird. This game is a bit weird. Let's see. This year, it's the AFC North. This year, it is the Cleveland Browns, who placed second in the AFC North last season. That is a home game for the New Orleans Saints. So you play a team that you haven't played from your opposite division for 2 years. Yes. For your ever opposite conference for 2 years, not 3 years. So remember, you're on a 3-year cycle, 4-year cycle for the AFC. You play the AFC West with the Broncos. They played the Jaguars from the South. So let's just lay this out here. Got the Texans, Colts, Titans. Hopefully this is being tracked up here. It's not. I'll grab that. I'll pick that up here in a minute. Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins. Sorry, this is very impromptu. Alright. Let me put this right here for a second here. Hopefully that's showing up. We'll show it on here. So look at this right here. So this is the division the Saints play this year? The AFC West. Last year, they played the Jaguars. Or actually, hang on, let's go. Last year, played this here. So here's the repeating segment, if this is tracking at all. So this is this year. This is 2024. This is the AFC West. They play this year. Last year they played the Jaguars in the AFC South. Next year they play the Patriots and the AFC East. In 2 years they'll play the Steelers in the AFC North. They also played that division 2 years ago. So since they're in the middle of that stretch where they don't play each other, they will have an extra game that they play against each other. And since the Cleveland Browns finished in second place, just like the Saints, they play them next year, or this year. So, next year, if the Saints finish third in the NFC South, for example, and afterwards, right, seems like we're good. Hopefully we're good. Following makes clear. Okay. So because they play the AFC East next season, the extra game will go to whoever they finished in the same place as in the AFC South. So if the Saints finish second place again in the NFC South this year, and the Indianapolis Colts finish second in the AFC South this year, the Saints and Colts will play in Indianapolis next year. And why in Indianapolis? Why would it be a road game for New Orleans? Because now that the home-away split is now lopsided, it's just flipped every year. So this year, the NFC team gets the extra home game. Next year, the AFC team gets the extra home game. And so on, so forth. So, every time, so because it's back and forth, and this is the way my mind thinks, every year that the Saints play someone from the NFC South and AFC South, from the AFC South and the AFC East, it will be a road game. And when they play someone from the AFC North and AFC West in a bonus extra game, it will be a home game. So it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird, I know. But that is how the NFL schedule is put together. Did that make sense at all? So, for example, to lay it out here is what the Bears have on the docket for the next handful of seasons. Someone posted this a while back, and I forgot. I just remembered that I logged this down for some reason because I just felt like it. So again, every year, 3 games, 6 games, you're playing every single season. Next year, the Bears will play at home against Dallas and New York and play on the road against Philadelphia and Washington. They will play at home against Pittsburgh and Cleveland, which those 2 games have not happened since 2017. The Bears have not played on the road against Baltimore and Cincinnati since 2017 as well. They'll play those 2 road games. Now, they will play someone from the NFC South at home next year, whoever they finish at the same place. So if the Bears finish 3rd place in the NFC North this year, whoever finishes 3rd place in the NFC South will play on the road in Chicago next year. So it very well could be Bears and Saints this year. But it also could be Bears and Buccaneers, Bears and Panthers, or Bears and Falcons. Who knows? Then they play someone from the NFC West on the road. So it could be them playing the Seahawks or the Cardinals or the Rams on the road next season. And then they play someone from the AFC West on the road. So whoever they finish in the same place, if they finish 3rd in the NFC North, whoever finishes 3rd in the AFC West, whether it be the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, or the Chiefs, they will play on the road. Same thing here. Same 6 games in 2026. Home for New Orleans, home for Tampa Bay, on the road for Atlanta, on the road for Carolina, home for New England, home for New York, on the road against Buffalo, on the road against Miami. And then the only thing I will say I don't like about the scheduling is that it feels like Oh, I see it now. Hang on. I'm seeing the pattern here. Because I'm like, there just isn't a pattern here. But there is. So, looks like the Bears are playing an NFC West team on the road for the next 2 years. Then they play the entire NFC West. Then it's the Bears playing at home against an NFC West team for 2 years. Then they play the entire NFC West. And it'll be another 2 years. I don't know. Really weird, intricate type of stuff. Just like these next 2 years. After this, they'll play an NFC East team at home for 2 years. Then play the entire division. And so on and so forth. I don't know. If you stare at a schedule like this for long enough, and you go and probably you could search up the New Orleans Saints' future opponents, and you could probably get a list just going on as far as time can see. And you can find this pattern, this exact pattern. It's all a pattern. It's all a pattern. But anyways, hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. Do you have any questions? Does that make sense at all? If you're confused a little bit, I think searching up New Orleans Saints future opponents could probably help you understand that. In the Premier League in England, 20 teams play each other twice. Yep, with the bottom 3 changing to the second tier, top 3 very different. Yeah, I like the NFL. More physical. Yes, and I think that the Premier League does it very well with the whole relegation system and everything. It makes sense that you... I get the schedule, bro. It's very easy to follow. You did a good job explaining. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like I can talk too much, make things a little too convoluted. I can understand. But, yeah. I like understanding how things are scheduled. Because, like, in the Premier League, it's incredibly basic. It's incredibly simple. 38 games. You play you play 19 teams. You play them once home and away. Incredibly basic. The NFL with only 17 games makes things really hard to play all these teams, you know, and play them in a cycle. And everything. So, you know, it makes sense. But yeah, like in the NHL, you play 82 games. But because there's 31 other teams that you got to play, you're playing I Will Be in Your Lives more. For sure, man. I love enjoying I would love to help you get familiar with the game of football. I think it's a great sport. I know that a big criticism for a lot of I know you're Brit. Yeah. Still in the rules. Yep. You'll get them as you go on. It takes some time. There are a lot of intricate rules. It takes time. You'll get it. But you know, I know a lot of people who follow football, soccer, don't like football because it's too slow. You get about 10 seconds of action at the max for a play, and then you wait like 45 seconds for another play. But to me, it's at the perfect pace where every play matters, and it's in a nice digestible format. But that's also why I like hockey so much, because it's so on the move all the time. It's a much faster game than soccer is. So, you know, I like both sides of things. And I also enjoy watching baseball, which is notoriously one of the slowest games ever. So inherently pretty boring to watch. So, I don't know. I understand it, everything. Glad you're with us here. Glad you're here. We'll be looking forward to seeing you around in the lives more. And, yeah. It's been almost 2 hours. I'm very glad to have been able to explain the schedule to you. We'll enjoy talking to you in the future. But for now, I gotta go. I gotta go grab some food. It's still only 2 in the afternoon for me. I know, especially if you're in London right now, it is much later. Hockey's 2. I got a Penguin sweater. Ah, nice, a Pens fan. I bet you're happy that they re-signed Crosby for a couple more years. Hang on to the legacy. I understand what it is with the fading dynasty. I'm a Hawks fan. So, yeah. So, yeah, there's a very long way to get around to saying, I gotta go. I've had a really good time talking to you all. Want to make content as NFL newbies, as an NFL newbie, as that hang on. Was that a request to make content together, or just you're telling me that you're going to try and make some NFL content? If so, wish you the best. It's 10. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I got to go get some lunch. Anyways, I have got to get out of here. I will see you all later. It's been great. Thank you all for hopping in, chatting it up, and I will see you guys next week. Again, I'll make a community post later today to ask if people are interested in more of these live streams for maybe during football, during live primetime games, other things, just some more live stream content, because I do enjoy kind of being able to just sit down and talk sports. So, with that being said, have a great day, everyone.